If you're deciding between going to law school and getting a PhD, this is the video for you. I'm one of a handful of people who have done both of these things, and in this video, I talk about these two very different experiences. Different countries structure legal education differently, but if you're in the US and you are going to law school, you are most likely pursuing a JD or a Juris Doctor degree. Now, there are other kinds of law degrees you can get. You can get an LLM degree, which is kind of like a master's in law. You can get a doctorate in law, which is closer to a PhD. But if you meet someone and they say that they are going to law school, they most likely mean that they are going to get a JD degree. A JD takes 3 years. A PhD program might take closer to 5 years. But that depends on where you go, what discipline you're in, and how your research projects end up. I've seen people graduate in 3 years if they already have research cooking or they have a lot of experience in the industry. But then I've also seen people take 7 years or 8 years or 9 years to complete a PhD, or maybe never. Going to law school is a highly standardized experience, especially in the first couple of years. In your first year, you're going to take the same classes at pretty much any law school that you go to, and they're going to be taught in pretty much the same way everywhere. You're going to be sitting in a large lecture hall, and you're going to read cases, and then you're going to talk about them. And then you're going to read more cases, and then you're going to talk more about them, and then you're going to read more cases and talk about them, and read cases and talk about them, until you get to the end of the semester and you take a big test about everything that you read. There are other kinds of classes in law school. There are what's called clinical classes, where you actually get to practice law, and there are legal research and writing classes where you actually get to practice practicing law. But about 80 to 90% of your classes are going to be fundamentally about reading lots and lots of cases and talking about them. You will be reading a lot. If you do not like reading, do not go to law school. PhD programs are much more diverse. Now, some of that variation depends on the program that you're in, but a lot of it depends on who your advisor is, and who your peers are, and who your mentors are. Two people could go to the exact same school and enroll in the exact same program, but have completely different experiences just based on having different advisors. One advisor holds weekly lab meetings where all students talk about the research. Another advisor holds one-on-one meetings where they talk about each individual person. Another advisor might not hold meetings at all. One is really connected to the people that you might want to get to know. Another one's not so connected to the people you want to get to know. One provides a lot of structure. Another provides no structure at all. In law school, by contrast, someone is always guiding your decisions. You take a standard set of classes in the first year. Then in the first summer, it's helpful to get any kind of legal experience that you can get. At the beginning of the second year, a lot of students join journals or may participate in moot court competitions. After the second year, everyone's trying to get cushy summer law firm jobs, or really any legal job that they can get. And by the third year, many students already have job offers or are desperately looking for work. And then everyone takes the bar exam. The PhD experience is much looser. Now, you'll have to take some basic classes, and you may have to take a large test after a couple of years. But after that, what you do is largely up to you and where your financing comes from. More on that in a moment. Most students at some point feel completely lost and frustrated because they don't have enough guidance on what to do, or their research isn't going very well, or they just haven't found their niche yet. Law school costs a lot of money. Now, maybe you have a special super duper scholarship, but it's not unusual to go into massive amounts of debt. And here I'm talking about $100,000 or more in terms of debt. If you get a law firm job immediately after law school, it's not hard to pay down this debt relatively quickly. The problem comes when you want to go into public interest law, or you want to switch careers before you even start, or you just simply can't find a job. A lot of law schools will sell you on loan forgiveness programs, which are meant to help you if you go into public interest law, for instance. In my experience and from talking to law school friends over the years, these loan forgiveness programs don't always play out in the way that the schools say they will play out. For instance, when I went into public interest law, I had to make massive loan payments on a credit card for several months because the approval process to get loan forgiveness from the school was not aligned to when loans started to come due. And then I ended up carrying a lot of debt on these credit cards for several years until I could pay it down. Most PhD programs do not cost money. Instead, you teach or you do research as part of your funding. Sometimes the school itself has money to give you. Sometimes it's grants under your advisor or some other professor that you're working with that enables you to work and get paid. And sometimes it's you as a student who directly applies for grants or scholarships that lets you pay your way through the PhD program. In most cases, at least in my experience, you can find someone to fund you. Now, you might not like the work that you're doing to get funding necessarily, but in general, these graduate schools care more about your time than they do your money. There's a perception among the public that PhDs are really knowledgeable. You go to undergrad, you learn a little bit, then you get a master's and you learn a little bit more, and then you get a PhD and suddenly you are an expert. That's not quite how it goes down. The primary skills that you learn in a PhD program are reading and writing skills within the discipline that you are getting your PhD in. You need to be knowledgeable enough to apply those skills to write research papers, but the knowledge that you need is relatively narrow. This realization disappoints many optimistic PhD students. The nice thing is that if you are willing to keep learning, then skills in study design and data analysis and clear writing will serve as a base for you to move from in future contexts. Of course, it can be nice to have those little letters after your name, but you don't need a PhD to learn something deeply. There are lots and lots of people who have deep expertise in a subject matter, but don't have a PhD. Journalists who have been working in an area for a long time. Industry professionals who have been working in an area for a long time. Amateur hobbyists who have been working in an area for a long time. So don't just automatically think, well, since I want to know more about this, I should get a PhD. Lawyers have the same kind of problem that IT professionals do. If you say you're a lawyer or you're going to law school, people will immediately start asking you legal questions. Yo, I'm telling you, it was entrapment or something. My company's been mistreating me for years. I want to sue the pants off of them. I've been thinking about starting a business, man. Can you help me incorporate? And the answer to almost all of these questions is you should probably call a lawyer. That's not me. Now, maybe because you take a lot of general classes at the beginning of law school, or maybe it's something else, but the public perceives that lawyers are lawyers and lawyers can help you out with anything that's law related. You have to take the bar exam, right? And the bar exam covers all areas of law in a particular state. But that's just a gatekeeping test. People remember very little from what they studied for on the bar. Lawyers are specialists. If you have a question that's within their area of specialty, then they can give you a pretty quick answer and it's going to be pretty accurate and it's going to be good advice. But for anything else, they've basically got to go back to the drawing board and read a bunch of legal cases and try to understand what's going on in that area of law. The skills that you learn in law school are related to reading, writing, and presentation skills. You get better at analyzing what you read. You get better at paying attention to details. You get better at presenting arguments in public. Just like in the PhD program, all of these skills can be adapted to different contexts and can serve you well in the future, but you're going to learn a lot more when you actually go out to practice law. You might hear people say, you can do a lot with a law degree. Now they say that because You find people with JDs in many different professions, especially professions related to politics and policymaking and business, even if they're not actually practicing law anymore. This fact, however, doesn't necessarily mean what you think it means. Law school is absolutely a career-oriented professional school. It's just like going to school for car maintenance or for plumbing or for any other profession. The reason that you see a lot of people outside of the legal profession with law degrees is that they decided they didn't want to be in the legal profession anymore, and their base set of skills and their credentials let them kind of transfer to a different career path relatively easily. My general advice is don't go to law school unless you want to become a lawyer, or at least be aware that the classes you take, the career services office, the events that law schools hold, and really the whole law school process is aimed at helping you to become a lawyer. And know that if you're going to deviate from the standard path of get a law firm job after law school or work as a clerk after law school, you are going to be fighting an uphill battle. The standard thing to do after getting a PhD used to be to go get a job at a college or a university somewhere. This career path, I think, has its charms, right? One, you get to do a lot of research and teaching, so if you're into both of those things, it's a pretty good job for you. And how you spend your time is mostly up to you. There's some faculty meetings to attend, of course, and you have to have certain office hours and classes, but the rest of your time you get to decide how you spend it. You also can move into administrative jobs after you have some faculty experience, usually. You could become a department head or the dean of a school or even the president of a university if you were so inclined. Now, the drawback is that these kinds of jobs can be very, very competitive, and we kind of have an oversupply of PhDs now and a dwindling number of college and university full-time faculty positions. So often what you're left to do is kind of cobble together a job being an adjunct professor, which means you're not a full-time professor, in several different universities, or maybe you're teaching at a high school and a university or something like this. If you're trying to get a faculty position right out of school, it's helpful to have a willingness to move almost anywhere, because on any given year, you're not really sure what the opportunities are going to be. Nowadays, a lot of companies also hire PhDs for internal research. Just to take one example, the tech industry hires lots of PhDs, people who might otherwise be at a college or university teaching sociology or psychology or anthropology or something. One of the best parts of both experiences for me was the opportunity to meet other students and to share ideas and to get really excited about what we were interested in. But I met so many people from different backgrounds who were passionate about their work and who thought really deeply about things and who wanted to make a positive difference in the world. There's plenty more to say, but I will stop here, and if you have questions, I will try to address what I can in the comments. If you're thinking about what to do next or you want to improve your learning, you can also consider joining my online learning community. I have more details about that in a link below. That's it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.